Okay, so we're going to pull this volume up. How does that sound? Is that better?
I can't tell a difference.
Okay, all right. So they're going to scoot up and they're going to ask the questions. And I'm going to walk out of the room and go back to my other kids, okay? All right, girls,
Alrighty,
have at it.
This has to stay open because I locked it. Okay.
Okay, so this year's theme is conflict and compromise. How do you think that the theme matches the controversy in Dayton with the trial of John Scopes?
Well, it was a huge controversy. It was a controversy on a lot of levels. First of all, you have the difference of opinion over what we call origins. Where did we come from as human beings? Did God create us, or did we evolve? So that was both a scientific and a religious controversy. As you got into the case itself, you had arguments over who gets to make the decisions. Should it be local people? Should it be the government? Does the majority get to make the rules, or do we have to take account of minority rights and interests? Things like that. So there was all manner of controversy discussed and argued during the trial. There wasn't a whole lot of compromise in the trial, but there was certainly a lot of controversy.
Why do you think John Scopes thought that this was important?
Excuse me?
Why do you think that John Scopes thought that this was important?
Well, he thought that a teacher should be able to teach whatever he or she believed to be the truth. And he didn't think it was right for someone to say, you can't teach this or you have to teach that without a very good reason. And he didn't think the law was a good law, so he thought this was something worth opposing, the Butler Act.
Okay, do you think John Scopes ever doubted his decision to teach Darwinism?
No. In fact, just before he died, he spoke at Vanderbilt University talking about it. And I believe in that talk, but throughout his life, whenever he would talk about it, he thought that what he did needed to be done, that the law needed to be opposed, because he didn't think it was a good law. He didn't think it was proper for the state to make that kind of law.
Back then, how many people do you think believed in Darwinism?
There are really three groups of people that in the United States that you have to think of. You have to think of the religious leaders. You have to think of the, let's call them college professors, high school professors, and then you have to think about ordinary people like you and me. By 1925, most of the people, what we would say in academia, most of the educators, professors, probably most of them believed mostly in some form of evolution or the Darwinian theory. The church, the religious leaders, were probably heavily influenced by it. You had a group that was called the fundamentalists in Christianity, who believed that evolution was not right and that Darwinism should not be taught, but a lot of what we call the mainline denominations, a lot of those people did think evolution was fine. Maybe even that was the way God created the world. Among just ordinary people, if anybody thought about it, and I'm not sure there were that many people who actually thought about where did we come from, I would guess in the South, most people believe.
How many schools taught Darwinism back then when it was a big issue?
Well, in 1925, most of the science textbooks had some kind of section on evolution. 1926, after the year after the trial, textbook publishers quit using the term evolution because they didn't want to be the focus of a trial of their own. Teachers really never quit teaching evolution in one sense. They quit using the word. Instead of talking about evolution, they talked about change and development and growth. But as you know, it was not something that was taught very much like we would think about it today, like you learn about it in school perhaps, because the textbooks approached the subject differently. Science had to do with practical things like canning food and
Zach Johnston to the office.
physics and that sort of stuff. But as far as biology, it was not as widely taught like we know it today. So there wasn't quite the same emphasis back then.
Okay, how do you think the parents of the students that John Scopes was teaching that day felt about the issue?
Most of the people in Dayton would have considered themselves creationists, I believe. But John Scopes was a popular teacher. He was a popular man in town. So nobody got mad at him, if that's what you're asking. They liked him and wanted to be his friend, wanted them to be friends. Nobody really criticized him. He served as the defendant in the case as a favor for the people of Dayton. And those who knew about that were good with it.
What did John Scopes do after the trial was over?
Okay, while he was here, scientists that were called to testify and some others raised some money for him to go to school. So even though he was offered his job back as a teacher,
Brandon Medina, you're right outside.
At the University of Chicago and studied geology, and then worked the rest of his working career as a petroleum geologist and engineer.
What was the impact on education after the trial?
Well, the first thing was that, like I said, the word evolution disappeared from textbooks for about 25 or 30 years. And teachers taught it very, very carefully, shall we say. Other than that, it really didn't affect education because, like I said, it was not that big of an issue, that big a deal. but it just made teachers a little more concerned about, how do I teach controversial subjects? And, ultimately it led to some court decisions that brought us to the point where we are today, where you can't teach creation science in public schools because the Supreme Court has said that's religious, and that evolution is the only scientific theory to discuss. That was a long-term effect.
Did John Scopes stay in Tennessee after the trial?
No, he left, like I said, to go to the University of Chicago. Worked in South America for a while. I believe it was Venezuela. Then lived in Louisiana and Texas. He visited Dayton a couple of times after the trial, but just very briefly.
Mm-hmm. That's all the questions we have.
Okay, well, thank you so much for calling, and I sure would love to know how you do with this project. I hope you all do very well.
Okay, thank you
Thank
for
you.
your help.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas to you.
You too.